Well, she drove all her money out with Southern Trust. I put a little boy aboard a Greyhound bus, leaving Louisiana for the Golden West. Down came the tears from her happiness. Her own little son named Johnny B. Good was gonna make some motion pictures out of Hollywood.
Very real. Hi, Art Fine's Poker Party coming to you from Hollywood. What are you doing?
Pointing at you, man.
Thanks. Coming to you for a second edition of our interview with Andrew Loog Oldham. It's Loog. You're using the Loog. When you introduce yourself, you say Andrew Oldham, I think.
That's what I'm paying for the call.
But let's meet the other guys. First, Domenic Priore in for another week. Thanks for coming back this week.
No problem. It was easy.
Thanks for wearing the same clothes. And Dominic's a well-known writer on pop things, and he's a big Brian Wilson guy, as well as Rolling Stones and
Sunset Strip, too.
And the Sunset Strip book, long in production.
Yeah.
It's coming out soon. A book about the history of L.A. told through the Sunset Strip and the music of
Well,
the era.
65, 66, just
65.
those 2 years.
You got the Dennis Hopper pictures?
Yeah, I've been dealing with them. Yeah.
Ah,
Lots of
huh?
people. Dennis and Julian Wasser.
Yeah. And Julian Wasser has some great stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Henry
you're a hard
Dennis.
taskmaster. Somebody mentioned Spirit to you, and you said sorry.
No Spirit. It's too late.
Yeah, because it's dated word.
Well,
not active in 66.
his last good year is 1959
Right.
or whatever it
Yeah,
is,
59.
58.
58, actually, you're
57
right.
was
It
it
died
3
in
years ago. Now
59.
you've extended it.
Yeah.
But 1966 was actually the last good year.
See, he might be right about that.
And you're saying the Doors were
That's-
wearing, because the Doors were wearing matching suits.
No. Yeah, well, actually, Jim didn't, wear leather yet.
Yeah.
When Jim looked like a college student, then he was good.
Yeah.
66.
Yeah.
They were something we should have been taking more notice of at the time in '66.
Yeah.
But we were already on room service.
Hey,
All right,
at the Tropicana.
let me talk. And there's Paul Bodie.
Yeah.
Paul, you got a record out, don't you?
I got records out. Now I'm putting them out
You got a
myself.
record. You got a record,
yeah,
too.
I got a
That's a
record
different-
too, but
yeah,
now I'm
that's a
putting them
different
out myself.
It's an excellent record.
Yeah.
I love his
It's a
record.
talking record. Love is like Rasputin. You didn't
Right.
bring one, did you?
I didn't bring one, man. I'll give you.
Oh, please. It's a spoken word record.
Spoken word, man.
I'm
Let
going
me
to
know
send you
where I
some
can
stuff.
send it to you.
I'm
I'll
sending
send
you
it
some
to you.
stuff. I'll put it in the packet. It's really good.
It's beautiful, man.
yeah.
I love it.
So
Talks about 65 because that was the ultimate year. Because that was when your boys were cooking. Well, everybody was cooking in 65.
Yeah.
You had the Miracles. You had Dylan. You had Dionne Warwick. Everybody was cooking
Everybody
in 65.
was, right.
Man, it was the greatest
Everybody
year.
could do no wrong. Just make another good one.
Turn on the radio, man. It was like a blind man radio because it was all good. That's it.
By Mel and Chitlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
next to me, yes, I didn't introduce, but I started talking to Andrew Loog Oldham. Is that what's the Loog?
Look, my father's name was Andrew Loog. My mother's name was Oldham. Turns out, when I was in Austin with you, I was getting this confirmation of the fact that I do have a half-sister in Texas, also called Andrew Loog, because our father was an airman who was married to her mother and not to mine. And, in a country that can produce a boy named Sue, that's not
Wait,
surprising.
how did you happen upon this information in Texas?
Through this great guy called Carla Withy, who does research for Stephen King, who did it for me too. And she was a high school principal in some town near Brownsville, or a kind of retirement place.
Yeah.
And if I was born in January '44, this other lady, Andrew Loog, was born in October '43, and her mother looked at us and said, when they knew the father was dead, whatever you're going to be called Andrew Loog.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Okay? And I did see a picture of her, but as there were no oil wells in the background, I moved on.
This is not unlike The World According to Garp. I mean, I don't know if you ever read
Never
that.
saw it.
Okay.
Never
Nor read it.
It's a book, too.
I know.
But what about,
Shakespeare, right?
but what about Espresso Bongo?
Well,
Did you see that?
some people told me I should have waited for the ending.
Oh, you didn't see the ending?
Well, no, at the time, I got so excited by, the beginning of the film, I went, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize there was a consequence. He and the act parted.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, speaking of the 50s, in your late teens, you guys were probably struggling. Well, you're struggling a lot more than we were struggling too to find rock and roll. I mean, you think it was everywhere, but it certainly
But it
wasn't.
wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
It was really hard to come by. And then you're always a detective. You're looking around for stuff. Now you were in London, rather than Liverpool, where the guys got the stuff off the ships.
Well, London was a port, but it seemed that places like Liverpool and Portsmouth were, just more active in terms of, bringing people coming back from America, bringing vinyl in. Whereas London, maybe they thought they were above it.
So
Sort of like San Francisco. It has the same problem.
There you go.
another port city. By the way, there's a couple of Andrew books. There's Andrew Loog Oldham's
Stoned.
Stoned, which came out in America a couple of years ago, and it's still out internationally. Quick, here's
Two Stoned, the sequel, which deals from 64 to 67 with drug cuts into the future.
It's odd that the second book, which covers the years with the Rolling Stones, would be the one not being released in America, since
Isn't
that
it?
would be of the more, you think, more marketable. But I want to talk about how you struggled to find music in those days, or did you? I mean, did you say the first record you got was Rock Around the Clock? Did that? When I talked to what's his name now, Jim from Texas, from Memphis, Dickinson.
Jim Dickinson.
And
yeah.
he said, and he's a couple years older than me, and he says, man, I'm telling you, man, in those days, you heard one record, you heard, Chuck Berry. You didn't know there's ever going to be another one. You just thought, that's great. Then like 2 months later, another one comes up, another rock and roll record, but it was just like a dream.
Yeah.
Just like, and you must have had the same feeling, but there was no radio at all, was there?
Well, you had Radio Luxembourg, which like broadcast.
Even in the 50s it was doing that?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Okay, but where Jack Good was the patron saint, because if the BBC at that stage had 50% needle time,
Sorry?
none Keith Richards, like 50% needle time, meaning that they were only allowed to play records half the day. The rest had to be live music.
Needle time. Okay.
Needle time.
Needle
Okay,
time.
there you go. Yeah, so they would only select a few. There were only 3 records added to the list for the whole country per week. Well, when you had the Jack Good shows, and I'm not the 6-5 special, but Oh Boy and Boy Meets Girls.
TV shows.
Yeah, the TV shows. They got to do, in some instances, songs that weren't even released. I mean, you'd watch Marty Wilde doing Endless Sleep, and so Jack Good brought to us records that never got played on the radio, but through artists performing, through people like Marty Wilde, Billy Fury, and even Cliff Richard. I shouldn't say and even Cliff Richard. Let's put it Cliff Richard, Marty Wilde, and they used to do, the music that, as you've just said, was hard for all of us to find. But if life was good, I mean, the war. Germany won the war, America rebuilt it. I mean, nothing really changes, they just moved southwest, and England got the music that most of America was sweeping under its rug and going, no, we don't really want this, and they swept it under the rug. He got on a boat and ended up in England.
I just realized what Jack Good did transcontinentally without knowing it. Rock and roll killed your hit parade here, which was these clean-cut people doing Barry
Doing
Como
rock
and
and roll
Four Lads. And when they had to start doing Blueberry Hill or Good Golly Miss Molly, they were they just killed the show right off by 57, and that's the same time he picked it up. He certainly didn't, but I guess the movement came over to Jack, because we certainly had nothing like Oh Boy here.
Yeah.
No,
Nothing.
well, no,
nothing.
We had nothing at that
nothing.
time. There was
Because that's like
nothing on the
official
air.
network confirmation and approval of that kind of music. And we
Well, there was
didn't-
one of the shows that stopped and started here, like Johnny Otis had a show as early as 55.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, in L.A.
Oh, yeah.
In LA, well, Los
But-
Angeles,
but
Center of
there's-
the
you
Universe.
mean the
but, yeah.
birthplace of rock and roll?
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, the birthplace. Yeah, and Art Laboe had a show here in '58.
Yeah.
They were all short-lived.
Yeah, but there's
But I don't-
no national.
But Johnny Otis was a miracle too, because he actually got on the, it's very odd to watch what got on the English mainstream charts, and that did.
And Willie and the Hand Jive?
Yeah.
It's on a Capitol?
Yep. And that's why.
But I do want to straighten you out in case you don't know that rock and roll was born in Los Angeles. That it was in 51. I have this photo on my wall at home, and it's of Big J McNeely at a racially mixed show
At the Olympic Auditorium.
Olympic Auditorium in 51. And
Well, the
he's on
Crows
his
were
back
here,
wailing, and the kids are coming from all the different types of backgrounds, all to see him blowing a repetitive sax note that's really great. And it's just wild. It's rock and roll. I wasn't there for it. But
You weren't.
at the same time, Alan Freed was in Cleveland playing classical records on the radio. He caught on much later. I mean, this is the place.
Yeah, but you also had things like the Crows was out of here, right? Gee whiz,
not the
no?
Crows, the Penguins.
Penguins, okay.
Earth
I mean, in Too Stoned, I mean, whereas my first book, Stoned, is less of a biography and more a thank you to the times in which we grew up in England.
Cool.
Too Stoned is also a thank you about the first 3 years of the Rolling Stones here, and my life with them during that time, but also a thank you to all the Americans who took us in, be it Seymour Steins, Richie Goddard's, Morris Levy's, the Lou Adler, Bob Crew, and all the people who took us around and and to be going down and say, oh, Knickerbocker Hotel, I stayed here. Herb Alpert and I basically went to songwriting school here with Sam Cooke. Wow. And so all of that history is threaded into Two Stoned, and Fred, how America, the independence into epic, and then you're having Dave Clark 5, who, I mean, can you imagine the poor Rolling Stones? We turned up and these people in suits that we laughed at in England had more hits than we dreamt of.
Good question. San Bernardino was the place. I mean, wasn't it?
I think our first show was either in San Bernardino or here, or where am I staying? Santa Monica, right? Because
yes.
I remember that when I was here in '82 with my wife Esther Farfan, and we were looking forward to the idea of her being pregnant with our son Maximilian, and we found out that she was. The nurse who gave us the news said, by the way, she said, I was here at the first ever Rolling Stones concert.
Wow. Santa Monica Civic.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Just like the nurse just threw that out?
Yeah.
Well, she knew who you were.
But once I'd filled in the form.
Wow.
Yeah, but San Bernardino, I mean, was John Peel was a British DJ who was out there at the time.
Right.
He was playing a lot of the records by the
He was there then?
more radical
Working here,
the Rolling Stones.
Didn't introduce himself.
Believe he was the guy who broke the record on the radio station out there. And the San Bernardino stations were audible here in L.A.
John Peel was here.
John Peel was here at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he was playing the Rolling Stones and the Pretty Things and the more radical sounding.
Wait, how did you were the manager, how did they get booked wherever they got booked? It was just a booking agent in America?
GAC.
And did they know what they were doing regarding?
No, we were like we were like the Sex Pistols of our time, with a couple of differences. The Rolling Stones had a manager and they could play.
Yeah.
But and they didn't stay in the Chelsea Hotel. But oh no, it was awful. I mean, when we played a state fair in Texas, and there's a swimming pool in front of us because the act before has been performing seals, and the other artists are Bobby V, and Bobby V should never be seen in tennis shorts, if at all. You know what I mean? It's just not on. I mean, whether it's 102 or not, some decorum. Wear your side divorce suit, Bobby. With the flapper, with the the rollover collar.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you're goffing and kinging it.
Yeah. Anybody else on that show? Was George Jones on that show?
Diane Renee.
Oh, please don't talk to the
Navy Blue.
lifeguard.
Navy Blue.
Bob Crew records.
Yeah, Bob Crew record.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good record.
Yeah. But that was the kind of
I don't know.
we had places where the promoters didn't show.
But I don't think a lot of people who don't follow this stuff as closely as we do know that the Stones, the 64 tour was just pretty much a washout or a very small
13 or 15 dates there was, but it really worked out because as there was no way that I could afford to have them go back to London and arrive without that, oh God, we were incredible look. Yeah. Their faces were pretty long. Yeah. I actually called up our close friend and mentor Phil Spector and I said, can you call and get us into Chess Studios? Now, the fact of whether I could have done it myself or not is neither here nor there, but Phil called, we got on a plane from Texas, went to Chicago, and we started to record, the records that we made there, that's
12
why...
by 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, the Rolling Stones, there's a part, the Beatles may have come and taken America, but there's a part of the Stones that has always belonged to America.
Yeah. Well, no, they've always been more... especially at the time, during that time, not only they were people dug them. I mean, they were more American, but they're also a big part of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because not only did they record at Chess, but they came here and recorded, and that's where.
Well,
I was in high school. We used to. Me and my homeboys. We couldn't get to the recording studio because we were too dumb. We were a block away. We still couldn't find it.
We were in Martoni's.
Yeah.
He said.
See, and I was right at Martoni's, didn't know.
Yeah.
But I would see Ian Stewart, and the guy said,
Really?
that I'd be reading like rave magazines, which would have the Stones or somebody on the cover. The guy said, "You like those guys?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, there's a guy who plays piano with him right there or something." It was Ian Stewart. I said, "Holy smokes!"
This was at RCA Music Center of the World, Ivar and Sunset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was the engineer Dave Hassinger you guys demanded to come to Los Angeles to record there. It's probably the best equipment in the world. I
It
think.
was fabulous. I mean, for that we have to thank Sonny Bono, because Sonny Bono was sent by Phil Spector to meet us at the airport.
When you arrived in LA.
When we arrived in LA, and Sonny stayed with us, and we wanted somewhere to record, and kind of Western and Somewhere Else You Took was a little bit kind of actually too funky for us. And actually it was too remindorial of Regent Sound in which we'd recorded, you know, I mean, no offense to Western, we know what was made there, but we wanted something big, Masonic and American. And he took us into RCA, where in Studio B, Jack Nietzsche was copying Phil with a version that came out on Atlantic for Green and Stone of Yes Sir, That's My Baby. Don't know who they
Hale
was.
and the Hushabies.
Okay.
Got
Yeah,
it.
with
Hale and the
Cher,
Hushabies.
Jackie
Got it.
DeShannon,
Yes.
Bobby Sox in the chorus.
Absolutely.
We met Dave Hassinger that day, and we you know, as you know, we moved fast.
Was it the last time? Was the first record you cut there?
No.
Which was the first at RCA?
I really don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, the last time came just, I mean, in the second or third run.
Yeah, and then Satisfaction was cut there as well.
Satisfaction was attempted first at Chicago.
Yeah.
And in my memory, it sounded more like Walk Right Back by the Rooftop Singers than Satisfaction that we know. And then it very luckily, you know, I mean, I was just, you know, I mean, I think that's the only song that ever got a second go, and thank God it did.
Well,
And then we nailed it in California,
key to this is the fuzz tone guitar, no?
which it didn't have in Chicago.
And where's the source of this fuzz tone? I mean, how did you guys figure to use that in
That's
Satisfaction?
Keith's, you know, I mean, whether Let's Hang On was out first, who knows?
No. We were
And I don't
speaking
know where
about
he
Phil
got it.
Spector had it on
Zippity
Zippity Doo-Dah, and there
Well,
was...
it goes back. I mean, there's.
I believe that you know that in Keith's and Ian Stewart's hunts of the guitar stores as they were, that it was gifted on him, and he
Well,
was
that's what he
just dragging
says.
it on.
He says
Yeah, okay.
somebody gave it to him.
Yeah.
I mean, but it wasn't like the Burnett Trio. It wasn't a guitar with a broken speaker. It was actually
No.
designed to be a fuzz tone.
Yeah.
And what about going to that immaculate piece of film you showed me the other day on Eddie Cochran, man? I mean,
Yeah.
I knew he was beautiful, but I mean, if we say Sam Cooke swung, Eddie Cochran's whole body was in rock and roll.
He's talking about the Town Hall Party the VHS that's out. Maybe there's a DVD too. Oh, it's a DVD.
It is
Sure,
a
it is a
DVD.
DVD. It's just so brilliant because it's 29 minutes of Eddie Cochran in 1958-9. And no one's ever. I mean, people who saw him saw him, but
Well,
I mean,
I used to watch Town Hall Party.
but I'm saying there's no record of him singing actually that we know of, except those movie roles where
Yeah.
he's lip syncing. And this stuff live, it's so
great.
brilliant. He's so the presence is so
Yeah, the presence is
magnificent.
We got some footage of Andrew here, don't we?
Yeah, we do. All right, what do you want to run? If you have the VHS, tell me and we'll run it.
Yeah, I heard yes.
You heard a yes? And
This is
so-
from Tonight, Let's All Make Love in London.
Yeah, from what year?
1967, Peter Whitehead film.
And this will be him in the recording studio with
Right.
somebody.
Somebody.
Yeah,
He knows.
we'll take a look.
I forgot the
Who was it
name of the
with? Did you tell us who the singer was on this? We'll just
I
keep
think
talking.
it's twice as much in Vashti by one.
Yeah, that's it.
What's wrong with that?
That's your role, man.
That's fine. So that was a movie called Let's Make Love in
Yeah,
London.
Tonight, Let's Make Love and Love by Peter Whitehead.
Now, you know, a lot of Brit stuff was really hot in those days. This one apparently wasn't. What happened to it? It was a full-length feature film? Or was it a TV thing?
I suppose so. I mean, I don't know what happened to these things, man. You know, we didn't
Beat
follow
cinema.
them.
This
this-
feature never came out either, so...
This is more of a beatnik. I mean, this guy, Peter Whitehead, also cut Holy Communion with Allen Ginsberg. He was a beatnik filmmaker, more or less. So these are more arty films than
And wasn't he also
a
a photographer?
movie, you know.
Yeah, he was the photographer.
He was
No, not an actual still photographer.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, he didn't?
No. I mean, not that I mean, and where you know, outside the ICA, where are you going to go see these things?
Right.
You know.
Exactly. And then
It couldn't make the Everyman because it wasn't French.
Well, he did Charlie Is My Darling too.
That's what he. Yeah.
And Charlie Is My Darling. Where would we have seen Charlie Is My Darling?
I saw Charlie Is My Darling with the Tammy Show.
Oh, it opened for the Tammy Show.
I saw the Tammy. It was Roustabout, because Roustabout was on part of the third go around. Charlie Is My Darling, and the Tammy Show.
Wow.
You know. And the Tammy Show, I like to say.
Charlie's My Darling was on then?
Yeah, it was at my show.
Wait a minute. Let's get that. What year
are
was
we
the Tammy
talking
Show?
about?
64.
Yeah, well, I didn't make it.
Wait,
till
no.
the
Tammy
What
Show
were
was
you
seen
taking?
in the theaters for sort of
Talking about the Tammy
65
Show
and
movie.
66.
Yeah.
But he's.
He could have seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like
no.
69 or something.
And no, it wasn't 69. It was maybe it wasn't the Tammy Show.
Can I clarify this? Because I know.
Yeah.
65, Tammy Show was released in the theaters.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it ran for a year, you know.
Yeah, but I did see it. I'm trying to think.
Until TNT came out.
God, I can't remember
What
when
do you
I saw
think?
it. But I know I saw Charlie Is My Darling at the theater.
With Tammy Show. That's genius.
Yeah, I
What,
think.
and what about the Tammy Show? That was a.
Oh, the Tammy
was that
Show
a
was.
was that a significant breakthrough? Because it didn't get seen that much, but it was good.
Each English act got 25 grand. That was a really significant.
Whoa!
Wow.
Whoa!
A 75 GAC
Wow.
package for Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Rolling Stones, and Billy J. Kramer, wasn't it?
Were they?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
That's
they
the
were?
three.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay? That was good money.
Good God.
You know.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Wow.
So that was one significant factor. The second significant factor was that the hosts were Dean and the late Jan of Jan and Dean, and hence I was able to meet their manager Lou Adler. We celebrate 40 years of him being my host in LA, and thank you. Then James Brown, of course, was the other trip, because the Rolling Stones had to follow James. And in actual fact, basically, follow him they did. But, you know, a lot is made out of this. But,
Isn't that kind of like Donovan following Dylan?
Well,
I mean, because
No, because
Donovan
it's-
following
it's-
Pete Seeger.
It's a little different. It's a little
It's
different.
different. It's my favorite footage of the Rolling Stones because they were
They-
amped.
challenged.
They were, you know, James Brown came and threw it down, and they came on and picked it up, so to speak. I mean,
No,
maybe James. The thing about James Brown was that was about as high as he ever got. That was about as high as anybody ever got. And the Stones, they gave him a good run
admit
for his money.
They had the
Because
Stones.
don't forget,
had-
I saw the thing with an audience of you know, a bunch of brothers, man.
Yeah.
And
Really?
say, hey,
And they were giving it to
they
him.
say, hey, we got to give those. I mean, we didn't say props.
Props,
We gotta,
yeah.
Not then, but they said they were on it because they were. But James Brown, it was like, good God.
Well, they spent their time in the trenches. I mean, the same way as the Beatles had done. You know, I think it's worked out, isn't it, that they did more dates before Love Me Do, as many dates before Love Me Do
As they did.
As
after.
as they did after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, we know the figure's different for the Rolling Stones, but they still, you know, you do 60-day tours with the Everly Brothers, Little Richard, Bo Diddley. You get it.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah.
You get the trenches.
I mean, it's not as precise. I mean, it was a different band. I mean, because James Brown, those cats were like an army. and
They were fine.
The Stones were like guerrilla fighters. It was a different thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
The Stones didn't find each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But then, you know, a lot of I hear the clock ringing on this, though. There was a raw period for the Rolling Stones, which was early, but as we heard in this clip, Andrew was also involved with some pretty eloquent, you know, pop recordings. That real ethereal sound we heard on the tape also was part of what you got at RCA with things like Paint It Black and whatever else was cut there. Was Ruby Tuesday cut here in LA as well?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got Ruby Tuesday and Paint It Black cut in LA. I mean, this is a different move than the early raw sound. I mean, how does it go from this raw Rolling Stones and suddenly we've got this pop eloquence going on?
Limos, chicks, and room service. You know, and the ability to buy velvet.
Yeah, that's well. The records were velvet as
Yeah,
well.
but
I
don't
mean,
forget there was Play with Fire, which had a totally different sound.
Yeah, but that's more due to the hour, the lack of the actuality of drugs rather than the perception. It's the hours put in. I mean, you know, at that time at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're in a studio. The three of the Rolling Stones have had to go to sleep. Charlie, Bill, and Brian, and the only ones there are Mick and Keith. Phil Spector has come down to the studio to tell me how high the last time will go. On hearing that news from the master, I think that made Charlie, Bill, And Brian goes, all right, that's enough. We're going to have a number 10. We can go to sleep now. But there was still a B-side to be done. That's why Play With Fire. Now, Play With Fire is really ethereal because you've actually got 5 people. You've
Exhausted
got
at 5 in the morning.
Yeah. And you've got Phil Spector playing bass, Jack Nietzsche playing harpsichord, Keith on acoustic guitar, Mick singing, and a great guy in the corner sweeping up.
Right from the
Yeah,
horse's
right.
mouth.
There you
Getting
go.
ready for the Jack Jones session at 9 in the morning.
Was Under My Thumb cut here too?
Yes.
And vibraphone.
Brian Jones had his last majestic moments. I mean, for whatever dysfunctional reason, he decided that he couldn't be twinned with Keith on guitars anymore. For his last hurrah as a recording artist, he had this ability to go out and find an instrument, learn how to play a particular tune, and possibly know more on that instrument, but be a master for the day.
And with sitar on Painted Black, same thing?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely incredible. He just didn't know, as Keith did, that art is better referred to as the diminutive of Arthur than taken seriously.
We were in the green room, so to speak. We were talking about the fact that you are often lumped in with the cabal that resulted in Brian's death.
The unholy trinity.
Right, yeah.
The unholy trinity.
Which is
That you were plotting it and scheming. Not that you
no,
were.
he
I'm saying
was
it's
gone by the
alleged.
time Brian Jones died.
Yeah, but nonetheless, the fact that
But no, it's always
that when I saw the Rolling Stones, Brian thought of it as his group, and he was the de facto leader in the way that many groups have leaders until a manager comes along, and then that person either can handle that change of power, or they still want to be the one handing out the ham sandwiches and the 12 pounds or
And the
12
flyers
shillings
and booking
and the
gigs.
things like that, and the control thing, and they suffer for it. And Brian suffered, and also the writing thing. And Mick, Keith, and I lived together, so that kind of, and we had fun together. That was the main reason. And the fun end of Brian Jones came with Mick and Keith again later, and had come earlier. But we had a job to do, and Brian did not write or could not deliver the goods because he kind of frowned on pop as much as wanting it.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't look down on it, man.
But now recently in Mojo, Marianne Faithfull was quoted.
This is the question we're going on. Thanks, Andrew Oldham. Thanks, Domenic.
I just want to say...
My turn. Marianne Faithfull recently said in Mojo that she saw Brian come up with Ruby Tuesday on the recorder.
Oh,
I wouldn't I wouldn't bet my life on anything Marianne Faithfull came up with in Mojo.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Revisionism is wonderful. Look at Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Oh, say something.
I just want to say, without you, I wouldn't be where I am today, which is a huge success, dude.
Chuck Mahoney.
Because the Rolling Stones changed my life, made me want to be a musician. And
well,
it
thank
just
you
rocked
very
my
much
world.
indeed.
And you were the cause. And all my homies, you were the guy. Forget Brian Epstein.
No, let's not do that.
No, I mean, no, I don't mean just.
Let's just forget Malcolm McLaren.
But you had style,
Okay,
man.
but they said Andrew Loog.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
No, can we?
Bye-bye.